Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome Byron Boldt to the channel. This is part of our ongoing Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention series. Tonight we are looking at the 1968 album Cruising with Ruben and the Jets. So get ready, this is going to be great. Let's go. Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and I want to welcome Byron Boldt to the show tonight. This is yet another in our Frank Zappa series. Now we're planning on doing the whole catalog. I might be dead by the end of it, but hey, right now we're in 1968, and we are looking at Cruising with Ruben and the Jets, which is the fourth solo album by. Well, I shouldn't say solo album. People are going to say that, but this is the fourth studio album by the Mothers of Invention. This is a bit of a concept album. I mean, technically, you know, the Mothers doing doo-wop.
Yep.
That's a concept album. So we're going to take up where we left off, and I'm going to turn it over to Byron. Byron, how are you? And welcome to the show.
I'm doing great.
It's nice to have you.
You know, I think the Zappa Family Trust is releasing the albums faster than we're going through them. So I don't know if we'll ever get caught up.
You might have a good point, because a lot of these have already been released in 2012.
Yeah, well, there's that.
Well, I know this might be this might be going off into a tangent, but don't you find it amazing that a lot of these records or CDs came out in 2012 so quickly? I mean, that reissue program really was, you know.
Yeah, they've tried to knock out, I think, most everything that he released in his lifetime in that year. And they might have missed a few things, but not many.
All right.
So
anyway, Byron, welcome to the show. What's your thoughts on this record? I mean, I don't want to say it's a dark horse record, but a lot of the reviews for it are kind of mixed to some degree. I mean, it's hard to believe this was recorded during the same time Uncle Meat was.
Right.
And they basically just cranked this out, you know. But let's throw it over to you. Let's hear what you have to say about it, and we'll go from there.
Right. Well, I suppose I'll start by just showing the cover. This is the you'd said 87. It technically was 84.
Okay, Buyer. Okay.
No big deal. No big deal. There's the back. This picture of Frank.
Yeah, but that remix, I'm just going to say.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I had never heard the original till years later.
I never did either.
Till that Greasy Love Songs, I think, came out, because I've never owned this on vinyl. I got this. I actually had the Old Masters box 1 back in the mid 80s, and it was all the original Mothers on that vinyl, but it had this version on it.
So it was the remix version.
So it was remixed.
Re-recorded so in case anybody's not, in case people are wondering, I don't know, Zappa fans may know this much better. Frank went through and rewrote history, recorded new bass and drum tracks, claiming that the master tapes were defective or whatever. But eventually the Zappa Family Trust went back to the original masters, had Bernie Grundman remaster them, and those have been put out. So, and those sound fabulous.
Yeah.
So I think it was a bunch of hoo-ha, but whatever.
Yeah, they released it in, I think it was 2010 on that one.
The Greasy Spoon.
So Greasy Love, it's called Greasy Love Songs. I don't know that. Grant said he's got a copy buried in his house somewhere.
Well, it's in the archives.
Right. He'll throw a picture of it.
I will.
Probably. Yeah, and that's the original vinyl release. And it's basically a completely different album. I mean, the songs are the same, but it doesn't sound the same at all. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this was recorded in late 67 to early 68. And like you had said, Uncle Meat was recorded around this time. Some of the We're Only in It for the Money and some of the Lumpy Gravy overdubs that he added they were all kind of recorded in this 67 to early 68 time period, it seems like. And so really, this is a 50s doo-wop rock and roll style record. And it's not real polished. The doo-wop stuff is a little off key at times, and that's the way Frank seemed to like it. He didn't like this perfection in his doo-wop stuff. And the thing about this album is it's more of a Ruben and the Jets. It's an alias for a Chicano doo-wop band, basically. And some people didn't even know that this was the Mothers of Invention originally until a little later.
No, because they never marketed it as a Mothers album.
But it does say right here, is this the Mothers of Invention recording under a different name in a last-ditch attempt to get their cruddy music on the radio?
Yeah, but still, Byron, no one's
that's hard to read.
Think about the casual teenager in 68 going through the bins and they see that record. The artwork might get them, but they're not going to, really like, look too deep into it. I don't know. The marketing could have been a bit better. I'm just saying.
I had heard that some radio stations didn't know it was them, and they played it because they wouldn't have played it if they'd have known it was them. I don't know how true any of that is, but
how would we? We'll never know.
They actually brought Ray Collins back on this album. He was not on We're Only in It for the Money, but he came back just to do this album. It sounds like. I think he sings a little bit on Uncle Meat as well. But he left shortly.
That's true. Yeah,
he left shortly after they recorded this, and like it's kind of a parody on doo-wop. It's a tribute, but at the same time, it's a parody.
But Frank loved doo-wop.
Yeah,
and I don't know.
He wasn't real big on love songs though, because he always wanted to kind of poke fun at them. So his love songs are a little like making fun of love in a lot of ways, or they're about somebody getting, screwed over in the relationship. But this was a good chance for them to kind of get back to the basics of, their younger years. That's what Ray didn't like the direction they were going.
Well, that's why he quit.
Yeah.
I mean, he came back for this because this was his passion.
Right.
And Motorhead, from what I read, loved this stuff.
We'll get to that a little bit too.
Sorry.
So, like you said, in '84, Frank re-recorded the drums and the bass.
Mm-hmm.
He edited it. So some things are a little shorter, some things are a little longer. It's my understanding he may have even re-recorded some guitar parts, or maybe they were things that weren't in the original mix, and then he added it to it when he remixed it. And a lot of times, this doesn't even sound like the same record on some of the songs.
I agree. Yeah.
But I also read that we talk about the 2012 versions that they did. Well, the 2012 version of the CD is the same as the '84, is my understanding. So. But hey, I'll be honest, if you're a hardcore fan, you really should own Greasy Love Songs and this.
I'm just curious though, Byron, wouldn't you think if you're in the family trust and Amit's taking care of this, I'm just curious. You've got Absolutely Free comes out in its original mix. We're Only in It for the Money comes out in its original mix. Wouldn't you think that Ruben would have come out in its original mix? And Freak Out, for that matter. I mean, the only way you can get Freak Outs is if you have that. Help me. You know what I'm talking about. Right.
Mofo. I think that they basically want you to buy the Greasy Love Songs and to buy the '84 version as two different things. And We're Only in It for the Money get reissued in 2012 as the original, or do you have to just get the lumpy money back?
No. It's the original mix in 2012.
So,
stereo mix. It's the stereo mix. The other one has the mono mix.
So anyway, we're kind of getting off on a tangent here, but
no, we're not.
Yeah.
We're talking Zappa, so it
True,
doesn't matter.
true.
It's all about the discussion. So go ahead.
But yeah, I would recommend. I don't own Greasy Love Songs, but
Well,
I
you should.
can stream it. But whatever. And I have a lot lately. But another interesting tidbit, especially it's in the there's a story in the Greasy Love Songs written by well, you read it and it's a guy who said he auditioned for Zappa right around this time as a singer, and he went over to Frank's house and auditioned and hung out, and then Frank said, well, I'll get a hold of you soon, gave him his number. And he said, the guy said the next day he went to go to Canada because he was getting out of the draft. And he says, I don't know if Frank ever called me or not. It was Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong.
Oh, I didn't know that story.
Yeah, it's in the story in the Greasy Love Song CD.
I guess I should revisit that.
Yeah, you should read that. So yeah, Cheech Marin had auditioned for Frank at one point. So anyway, all right.
Is that prior to Cheech and Chong?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. It would have been, well, so we're probably around the same time. So it was probably
68.
Right. Yeah. So, all right. So maybe we'll kind of get into some of the tracks on here.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
The first song on here, it's called Cheap Thrills. It's got a real 50s type feel to it. To me, it starts out with this introduction that's totally different from the rest of the song. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Unchained Melody, the way it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about how much he loves this woman and whatnot. And then that ends and the song it comes real fast, but it's real repetitive. And he keeps talking about how to get cheap thrills. So, it's like, first he's about, oh, I love you, darling, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, cheap thrills in the back of my car, this and that, So it's just that Frank sense of humor again. Then the next track is Love of My Life, which is a real slow doo-wop ballad. This was originally recorded in 1963, and I don't remember if it got onto like Lost Episodes or not.
I don't have that, so I'm gonna go.
It's even on Greasy Love Songs. I don't know, but he re-recorded that one or two other times, and it's on Tinseltown Rebellion. Okay, so the next track is the first of a few that were actually on Freak Out originally. So how could I be such a fool is the third song here, which, like I said, was on Freak Out. On Freak Out, it was in 3/4. We're on this album, it's in 4/4. It has a completely different feel. It doesn't have any of the orchestration as on Freak Out. Not a lot of instrumentation to it. There's a lot of vocals on this album, of course, because it's in a doo-wop style. But there's just some piano, some bass, and drums. I had read that, and there is a guitar part on the 84 version, which I do not believe is on the original. And, it's basically about a guy who gets used by the girl he's seeing. Like I said, it was on Freak Out, so we have talked about it on that album as well. The next track, Desiree, one of my favorite songs on here. It was a single. It's a real happy Frankie Valli type song. And it was written by Ray Collins and Paul Buff. Paul Buff was the guy who Frank worked with, I think on Run Home Slow or one of these soundtracks that he did. And he had a recording studio, and Frank bought the studio off him or got it for doing a soundtrack. So they did a lot of work back before the Mothers, recording singles, and Ray was helping out with some of the vocals on all those things. So, but I like that Desiree track.
Do you think that is the obvious single on this record? I mean, not that there's really any obvious singles, but as the album goes, what would you say?
Yeah, I think there was one other track on here that was a single, but no, Desiree, it's pretty catchy. There's one or two other ones on here that I really like a lot.
Any Way the Wind Blows was a single.
Yes. Yep. I got that written down here. So So the next track, I'm Not Satisfied, that also was on Freak Out. And on there was really kind of a rockin' tune with some orchestration. But this one it's real slow, minimal instrumentation again, a lot of vocals going on. It almost sounds like a different song. Like I said, it's real slow with this piano. To me, it's got kind of a Fats Domino, Blueberry Hill feel to it, with the dun, 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 piano type of song. Basically, the song is about a guy who just hates his life.
Not surprised at all. I'm not surprised.
So, I'd mentioned that, I think, when I talked about it on Freak Out. Okay, the next song, and to me, could have been a single as well, Jelly Roll Gumdrop. It's real peppy. The intro on it sounds to me like I Can't Turn You Loose by Otis Redding without the horns. You know that song?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, it's about the same time.
It's like without the da 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 da. Doesn't have that though, but it starts out like that. It's really catchy. I wrote down it could have been a hit. There's 2 bonus versions of that I know on the Greasy Love Songs as well. So they did it.
Well, Byron, it could have been hit in like 1958.
Oh yeah, it could have been. Next
track. You know what? I don't want to interrupt, but don't you find it interesting though, the fact that Mothers are on MGM, the Verve, and they seem to be able to just put out whatever they damn well please. Because think about this: in 1968, could you imagine even putting this record out?
No, it wasn't. We were so young at that time. I don't think.
Yeah, but
I think it was kind of past its prime at this point. But there might have been some people that were like 30 who would have been like, "Oh, this reminds me of the 50s when I was in high school."
But considering, we're talking the late 60s, we're getting ready. It's post Monterey Pop. We're getting ready to go into Woodstock. You just think of the whole flower power and all that movement but Frank is passionate about doo-wop. He puts out a doo-wop record, but the record company puts it out. I just find it, I'm just thinking at the time, it just seems like he can seem to just kind of push on and do what he does and put stuff out. I don't know. I just find it, I find it all fascinating. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think right around this time too, he and Herb Cohen had started Bizarre Records, and they did a 3-album deal for Bizarre on Verve. This was one of them. There was a girl, what was her name? Sandy Hurwitz. Her album came out on this. I've never heard
that. What? How about Uncle Meat? Was that on Bizarre?
I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, but it might have been by that time. Was it Warner Brothers they moved to?
Because I think that was on Verve.
Because remember they started having those labels for Bizarre.
Yeah.
They weren't Verve labels, and I don't know exactly. I'll learn that here. I'll learn that again as we get to the next album we do a show on.
Okay. I correct myself because we want to be accurate.
Yes.
Uncle Meat came out on Bizarre Reprise.
Right. Reprise. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So evidently the Mother's Mania, the comp, was the last thing for Verve.
So I think this was the first on there, and then the Sandy Hurwitz, and then the Mother Mania. That fulfilled the contract.
Mm-hmm.
You can see Mother Mania is right back here.
I'm pointing to it.
Anyway. And then Verve released 3 or 4 other probably compilations without his approval on Verve. So anyway, we're getting
off. I know we're off track, but let's touch base real quick. But Mother Mania, I just want to go out there for the people who are watching. That was put together by Frank. There might have been other comps, but go ahead, Byron, grab that real quick. this is the only comp in this period from Verve or
right. Yeah, there was the XXX of the Mothers, and then the Worst of the Mothers. Those were all put out on Verve. So,
but Frank had his hand into this, and just to mention that there were a lot of different mixes on stuff on here.
yeah.
So like, brain problem. What was the track? Oh my God, I'm gonna have to make it.
I have notes on this because I wasn't sure if we were gonna do it or not.
Well, it sounds like we're doing part of it.
I can give you the quick rundown if you want.
Well, shit. See, I derailed it.
Basically, everything on here that's from
Wait a minute, go
free.
3. All right, 3. Are you talking? You're talking the comp?
On the Mother Mania.
Okay.
Everything
3.
on.
All right, I'm going to give you a countdown so we're not all
Start
fucked
over.
up. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so on this Mother Mania, it consists of stuff from Freak Out, Absolutely Free, and We're Only in It for the Money. Everything from Absolutely Free was not really touched. Frank did edit Call Any Vegetable down to shorten it a little bit, but pretty much everything from that album really wasn't touched. The stuff from Freak Out was remixed in a lot of cases into stereo versions from the mono, and then for the Rolling It for the Money stuff, okay, Idiot Bastard Son on here is totally different. It seems like they say you need this just for the different version of Idiot Bastard Son. It doesn't sound anything like it, in my opinion. The instrumentation is way different.
Well, what about Mother People? Because that's got the unedited version.
Correct.
So it's got the swearing in it.
Right. It does.
And it doesn't, it's pretty much just the track by itself,
Correct. And
which is incredible. That is, if you're looking at this comp, for my money, just to get Mother People unfutzed with is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, I think that's the only 2 songs from We're Only in It for the Money that are on there is Mother People and Idiot Bastard Son. Everything else was off the first one or the second one. So, okay, we can get back.
Anyway, we're back on track. Yeah. All right, kids, you know how this channel runs. We'll get on tangents all the time. So, Byron, go back. Go.
We're back. We're up to side 2 now.
We'll wind it back. We'll go to side 2. Go ahead.
Right. So, side 2 starts with Later That Night, which is a real slow breakup ballad, where he talks about how his woman locked him out, but she changed the lock on the door. She threw out all of his stuff.
So great.
And some of these songs too, it was kind of a thing back then where, they'd be singing and then all of a sudden the guy will start talking. He did that a little bit in Freak Out too on You Didn't Try to Call Me, but he does that on this album too. So they'll be singing and then he starts talking like, what, why did you throw my stuff out or whatever he says, I loved you. So
I love that track.
Yeah.
It is like one of the highlights on there. It is. It seriously is. You just have to chuckle a little bit, but it's a great track. Yeah.
I meant to mention on the last song on the first side, Anything. Well, actually, we didn't even talk about that one. I think we skipped it because that's a Ray Collins
song. I probably got you all diverted.
Well, we'll talk about it real quick. It's a Ray Collins song. It's a real simple doo-wop ballad with piano arpeggios and a sax solo. But here's the deal. That on the 1984 version has the original bass. So he had that bass track somewhere on whatever. If I read about all this, and if you listen to it, it is the original bass.
So he had I understand what you're saying, but I want to hear it again. He had the original bass track still. He didn't wipe it.
Yes, he had it on that track.
I wonder why.
I'm going to get to another song later, which is going to make you scratch your head too. So, I'm scratching my head. The fact that, I don't want to repeat myself, but the fact that this album was so drastically changed
back in the 80s. That Anyway, Byron, go ahead. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we're just having a conversation, so it's all good.
Right. I mean, I started with the 84 version, so
so did I. So did I.
Didn't throw me, but now I think I like the original better. But I don't hate it.
Well, think about the production.
I got introduced to it.
Think about the production, Byron. If you've got those original tracks, everything kind of blends together. It has the same tonality. You look at those 80s tracks, and it just doesn't sound like it fits.
It doesn't.
They stand out.
Yeah. So let's get back to side 2. So You Didn't Try to Call Me. That was also on Freak Out. I like that song a lot. This one's a little slower than on Freak Out. There's no orchestration on this one. Has a little bit of guitar. Apparently a little, from what I noticed, a little less guitar on the 84 version. And that one kind of has this big climax at the end. I had said in the Freak Out episode that reminded me of Tom Jones kind of. So he doesn't have that on this version, but it's still pretty good. Next track, Fountain of Love. So this is another Ray Collins, Frank song. This was actually recorded in '63 originally and is on the Lost Episodes album. So it had been around for a while. It's a real nice slow ballad. Now, I don't know if you ever noticed, so on the 84 version, it starts out with like a DJ saying, Fountain of Love, in the DJ type voice. That's not on the original. I'd never noticed that.
So was that added?
It was added.
I'm assuming was that on the original masters and they never used it?
He must either he added or it wasn't there. But it's either there and he didn't mix it in or he created it. I don't know.
Who knows?
But yeah, that's a pretty decent song. And then the next song, No, No, No. It's real fast, but to me, it's so repetitive. I don't really care for it that much. Bop do a do, bop do a do, no, 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 no. It's that the whole song. It's that with a few other words here and there. It's not that great. Anyway, The Wind Blows. That was the single you had mentioned. Once again, that was on Freak Out. Here, it's real slow. It's like almost like a dirge, where it was real upbeat on the Freak Out album, but I think it's still pretty good. Then we got the last track, Stuff Up the Cracks. Okay, I really like this one. It's a mid-tempo song. It's about this guy is going to kill himself if his girl leaves him. We've seen that before.
There's a lot of this happens quite a bit.
There's the lyric goes, "Stuff up the cracks, turn on the gas," because he's gonna basically gas himself to death if she leaves him. Basically, what he's saying. So this one uses the original bass and drums from the album, the original album. He did not use re-recorded bass and drums on this either.
Yeah.
So if you go back and check out this 84 version sometime and listen to that song, it's the original drums and bass. And I don't know why he didn't do the whole album like this.
See, that doesn't make sense.
Unless
you said, there's a lot that doesn't make sense.
It's possible that he only had the masters, the multi-track masters of the individual songs, and some of them maybe he only had the individual masters from those 2 tracks, but everything else he had to.
No, he had everything.
Or maybe the drums and bass were screwed up on those other songs and these 2 songs.
But they weren't, because we have record that they weren't.
There's a lot of discussion on the internet about what the hell.
Oh God, I know. There's like going down into a rabbit hole. But thank God we got the 2012 or the Greasy Spoon, whatever. Though they should have called it. We're only in it for the money. They should have called it Cruising with Ruben and the Jets original mix or something.
Yeah,
I'm just even the way they name those reissues, Mofo, and it just I don't know.
yeah.
Are you trying to sell stuff? Are you trying to keep it off the radar? But I think it needs to be marketed better. But that's a whole other tangent. And you know, Byron, we've been on a tangent the whole night. So
yeah. I didn't rate this. Were you gonna rate it? Because I don't even remember what I gave for some of the other albums. So now I wish I knew what I gave the other albums. So
I love this record.
What are you gonna give it then?
What would I give it?
Yeah.
I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's an essential Mothers record. It's more of a curiosity. But the fact is, Frank loved doo-wop. Okay. And the fact that we got Ray Collins back, who was absolutely brilliant. And I was going to ask you about this before we go on. How do you feel about Ray's vocals on this?
He's definitely the best singer in the band. And I always felt like he was the only guy that really was qualified to be in a. I mean, the other guys weren't that great as singers. Although Roy's got a decent.
Roy's all right.
He's got that pretty good falsetto, and he's not bad. But Frank does a lot of the. Would it be the bass?
Well, he does a lot of the low stuff.
And he's not the greatest at it, but hey, it's you can tell it's him. That's what's so cool about it too. Is it's like this sounds like the Mothers. It doesn't sound like there's probably a whole bunch of doo-wop bands which they all sound the same to me because I haven't really listened to them. But when I hear the Mothers,
this distinctly sounds like the Mothers. There is no confusion on that, Byron. You easily can pick it out.
I picked up this a while back. The Persuasions sing Zappa.
Okay.
Persuasions, I believe, were originally on like Bizarre or Straight. He discovered them. And this is them doing a bunch of Zappa songs. This was recorded much later. But
what year did that come out?
This came out in 2000. Found that at the Goodwill. I better grab that.
You found that at Goodwill?
Yes. Also, have you ever heard that Zappa at Carnegie Hall?
No.
It's like a 2 or 3 CD set. I think it's a 3 CD set. It starts out with Persuasions doing a set because they opened for him at that show. And
all right, I found the Persuasions. Okay. All right, I found them on the internet. So they were based out of Brooklyn, New York. A cappella group, 1962 to today. Their discography. What is the record that you just showed us?
It's called Frankly A Cappella. But I believe their first
album out in
is
2000 on Rhino.
Yeah. So their first album, though,
if you go back, like you said, Byron, they put an album out in 1970 called Acapella, and it was on Reprise Straight.
There you go.
And they it appears to me they only put out one record on that label.
Yeah.
Then they went over to Capitol. By 1973, they ended up on MCA. 1974, they are on A&M. It looks like the Persuasions kind of bounced from label to label.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. They did put out a record for Straight Reprise.
Yep. So one other thing I think I'll go over before we call it a night was this came out in 1972. Ruben and the Jets for Real.
Right. So
apparently this Ruben de la Guevara or something, he knew Frank a little bit and was a singer, and he asked Frank, well, can I start a band and call it Ruben and the Jets, since his name was Ruben too? And Frank's like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And Frank said, I'll tell you what, I'll even produce it for you. And so Frank produced it, and he wrote the first track on here. And this came out in 73. So he produced it. He wrote the first song, which is called If I Could Only Be Your Love Again, which is actually pretty good. It sounds a little like, to me, it sounds kind of like Mothers of Invention, Flo and Eddie era, as far as just the way it sounds and some of the
that
music.
era.
Yeah, and it's from that same time frame, so it's got that same feel. It doesn't sound like a 50s album, though they do some doo-wop on here, but they also do just some stuff that's a little more rocking. But the second song is called Dedicated to the One I Love, and Frank plays a real long guitar solo at the end of that. But so this album also has Motorhead Sherwood here, and
got a Motorhead on there.
Motorhead. And then this is Tony Duran, who played guitar on the Waka Jawaka and Grand Wazoo period. He's on some of those albums. And there's a Robert Frog Camarena. I think he did some vocals on Apostrophe, that era. So there's some Zappa related guys on here. It's not bad. They did a second album too, but I've not heard that one.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I saw it on Discogs, but I've never seen it in person.
Surprised you don't have that in your catalog.
No, I've never seen it in the wild. So, but yeah, that's a decent album, that for real. So,
well, I was just going to say, you probably can't compare that to the original Ruben and the Jets record from the Mothers. So it's a totally different listen, correct? I mean, like I said, you'll hear a little doo-wop in it, and they sound way more polished than the Mothers ever did as far as the doo-wop. So you're going to hear, like I said, more polished doo-wop, and they actually rock out on a few tracks on here. It's a little more straight ahead, especially that first song that Frank wrote, and then that second song, it's got that real long guitar solo, which you don't see. You don't hear anything like that on the Cruising with Ruben and the Jets album. No, that would be very out of place.
Yes. So anyway,
but all right. Well, I'm just curious though. What would you give this if you were going to rank this?
I'm going to go a 7.5.
Holy crap! But Byron, that's great.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's pretty good. The only thing I really don't care for on here really is no. I don't think it's all that great.
Yeah, but
this is okay. But everything else I think is really good on here.
I think everything on it's great. I don't have any problem with no. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
There you go.
Now I just want to say, back in the day when I first got it, of course I picked up that original Ryko CD that was remixed. Okay. Yeah. Now, back in the day you had Ice Magazine, which, do you remember Ice Magazine?
No, but I've heard you discuss it before.
Okay. So what Ice was a publication that would come out once a month, and it was very plainly printed. It was basically tan paper with just print. And this was really the only place you could find out any information of upcoming CD releases, CDs that are going to be remastered, and all that. So this is really the Bible at the point. And actually I still have some of those Ice magazines, and they're phenomenal. Of course, that went by the way of the dinosaur. So what I learned all this from those.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about for Zappa remixing and everything. But at the time, I was okay with them being remixed with those new rhythm tracks being re-recorded.
This was really hard to find back in the day. The vinyl, the original vinyl.
Well, you can't find it. It didn't sell. So let's say this, we go back in time and we're, you and I are talking, we are glad that it came out in some form or another, right?
Yeah, you took what you could get.
You took what you could get. And I was always just struck by the whole record. I thought it was a great record. Some people thought it was a throwaway. I didn't see it as that. I think it's Frank doing his true passion. He loves doo-wop. They figured they could do this, throw it out there and go with it, and they did. I don't think anybody thought it was going to set the world on fire. It's kind of like a dark horse record, so to speak, but I think it still stands up. I think it's great that the Zappa Family Trust went back, had Bernie Grundman remaster it. Look at those tapes. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with them. If you listen to the remaster, it sounds great. Yeah. All the ones where the original, absolutely free, we're talking we're only in it for the money, that had all their tracks restored back to those the way they were. I mean, I applaud them. It's great. Because I never thought, think about it, Byron, from like 87 to like 2012, would you have ever thought any of those albums would have come out in their original mix? That's all I'm saying. It's great that we have it, because the true Zappa fans really want the original mix. And I'm just saying, so it's great that it came out. I don't have any issue at all with the original mix of Ruben or the drum tracks or the bass tracks. It sounds fine to me.
Yeah, it's, if you listen to them side by side, it's like, wow, these sound
like two different records.
Different, right? Mm-hmm. But like I said, I grew up listening to the 84 version, so I'm used to it. But I do prefer the 2012 because it just seems more.
Well, it's more historical. It's more, it's. I understand. You look at a lot of artists. This is like an ongoing thing on the Hoffman forums. You get these artists. Look at ZZ Top. Remember that box set where they went back and put 80s drums on everything? And it was absolutely made you want to jump off a bridge. A lot of these artists, if you give them the controls, they're going to rewrite history. Okay. That's what Zappa did. That's what ZZ Top did. I'm sure there are other examples. And, for the purest fan, we want the actual mixes. What came out in 1968? What came out in 69? We don't want you to rewrite history. But, the true Zappa fans, they probably embrace both. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll take both. I mean,
there you go, Byron. There you go. But I'm just saying, thank God we have those original mixes that were remastered by Bernie Grundman. They sound great. Everything is, thank God they came out, I don't think Frank in his lifetime would have put them out.
No, people say that they think his hearing was all fried by the time he was doing a lot of these CDs too, and that people complain. They say the reverb, but then there's also what he did with this, but then they say it just doesn't sound good. Some of it's kind of harsh on the ears, and they think he couldn't hear it, so he didn't notice it.
Mm-hmm. I never had much problem with the Rykos, but if you look at the reviews, all those 2012 CDs kind of smoked the Rykos.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. If I'm going through the bins, okay, and I see something that I don't have and it's a Ryko, well, I'll pick it up.
Yeah.
I'm not that picky, but I do like the original mixes. I'll give you that. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I found a Overnight Sensation. Mm-hmm. It's the one of the with the mid 90s CD. I just found that for $1 the other day, and I grabbed it because I only have the twofer of that Apostrophe Overnight Sensation, and I want to kind of get away.
The twofer's on Ryko, right?
Yeah.
I think I've got that.
I think it's the same. I think this is the same as the Ryko as far as musically, but I wanted them separated for the artwork mostly, so I'm trying to, all those twofers that he put out, he didn't put out a lot, but a few of them. I'd like to get the individual releases on those at a minimum. And
the 2012's your friend.
Yeah. Well, I didn't find that one at the garage sale. But
well, you might not.
And you never will.
Well, yeah, right. You're better off finding the Rycos in the garage sale than you would any of those.
Well, the
Zappa Trust CDs.
You can get the 2012s, or you can just find the original vinyls too. It'd be probably easier to find the original vinyls than the 2012.
I think so. But the prices, and we've talked about, I know we're on a tangent, it doesn't matter. But you know how vinyl prices have just went skyrocketed.
It's not that crazy though, for some reason.
So Zappa, is still within the realm.
It's not bad. I mean, a lot of them are $10, $15, Mm-hmm. Some are more, but I don't think that the young kids are buying his stuff on vinyl, which has caused the prices to not skyrocket.
I will say this. At the local record store in town, you go through the Zappa section. It's kind of like Elvis. No one's buying any Elvis, and I don't think anybody's buying any Frank, which I'm really surprised. But I can't see that really. Well, some people, but it's not like it was,
No.
And, as far as I'm concerned, everybody needs to hear Frank and be turned on to his works. But who am I? I'm just some guy,
You're an old guy. You're not hip anymore, man.
God, I just remember when I was at Ohio State in the late 80s, I remember parking in the C lot, which is where the students could park. And I was listening to Absolutely Free. We're only in it for the money. Ruben and the Jets. And I just remember sitting in the parking lot before class. You may have had a moment like this. And I'm listening that we're only in it for the money. Even though it's remixed, it's got new bass drum. But I kept sitting there listening to it and just going, oh my God, this is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
It's still on my top 10 favorite album list. Is We're Only in It for the Money. Absolutely Free's right up there too. I think both of them are absolutely brilliant. But when I was young in college, taking everything in, how it is, I thought it was brilliant, and I still do.
Yeah, I remember. It's probably 84. I started listening to Zappa. Seriously, I'd heard my cousins had Seek Your Booty back in like 78 or 79. Mm-hmm. They lived in Arizona, so we went out and visited them once or twice. So I remember hearing that then, but it wasn't until about 84 I started buying my own Zappas, and it was just. I remember you'd see them in cutout bins, like you'd see like Tinseltown Rebellion.
Are you talking vinyl? Or are you talking?
Yeah, vinyl. You'd see Tinseltown.
Well, there's a lot of those later Zappa albums that just went right straight to the cutout bin.
Ship Arriving Too Late. But you'd see these, and you're like, well, shit, I'll get these. There are cutouts, and then you're like trying to find the stuff from the 60s or 70s, and
extinct.
It was tough. And when you found one, you grabbed it, man.
Yeah, but I never.
We're just discovering all these great Zappa albums.
But I'll tell you, Byron, back in the day, you're talking like 84, 85?
Yeah,
mid-80s. It wasn't until they reissued all those CDs. But I remember going to record stores back in the day, and you rarely saw any Mothers records.
And you grabbed them if you saw them.
You grab them if you saw them, but I don't. It seems like I saw more in the bins once those 87 CDs came out than people thought, oh, okay. And then you started to see some. But before that, I never saw anything. Not in Central Ohio.
Yeah, I just remember I'd be like, "Wow, what's?" I just go to the Zappa section. I was like, "What is this?" I'd grab it, I'd buy it. Mm-hmm. Remember, one day I picked up Fillmore and Lumpy Gravy at the same time. Imagine hearing Lumpy Gravy for the first time, not knowing what is even on it. It was like, what the hell is
It
that?
must have been quite an experience for you.
Yeah, I had no idea what it sounded like.
Well, did you ever pick up any of those old mono copies in your travels back in the day? Like a mono freak out or
I don't
absolutely free?
own
Or
any monos. Never had a
I
mono.
don't I even think those were even rarer, you know?
Yeah. But
I don't know.
it was great discovering those the first times and hearing them the first time.
Yeah, especially when you're like young, you know what I mean? I'm not saying you can't discover anything when you're older, but when you're young and everything's all shiny and new to some degree, and you're really taking in a lot of music, it does make a big difference, you know?
Yep.
I don't know. So anyway, what was your final score on this?
7.5.
Okay, 7.5. I give it an 8. So I guess that would be what,
7.5.
7.75.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Not one of their best albums, but it's up there. It's pretty good.
Well, I know, but I think if you're into the Mothers, it's a must-have.
Yeah, they're all anything that he released when he was alive is a must-have in my opinion. And a lot of the posthumous stuff is must-have,
But if you're gonna
I
get
don't
it,
need all of it.
if you're gonna waste your time on Ruben and the Jets, please get the Greasy Love Songs version.
Right.
Not only does it have the complete album, but it's got like extra bonus tracks and stuff. I don't know if it's still in print now, but
yeah, there's what 7.
if you're gonna get it, get that and don't.
There's a lot of bonus tracks on there and a couple dialogue tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth having. I don't have it, of course. But.
Well, if you were a hardcore Zappa fan, you would.
As soon as I find it used, I'll buy it. It's never going to happen, probably. Though.
Well, I think I got mine new.
I have this. I can stream the other one.
Do you have that on vinyl?
Oh, great.
Do you have that? Did you ever pick it up on vinyl? You never.
Never. I think a guy I know a guy who's got a store in town.
You know a guy that knows a guy that has it?
Well, I know he's a guy in town. I know he's got his own store, and he might have a copy of that on vinyl. But I don't want to pay. I think it's $20-$25.
Oh God, no!
I don't want to pay that much for it.
You're fine. You've got that old '87 version. You're just tickled pink.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine. All right, cool. Well, I give it an 8. Well, together we give it a 7.5. Highly recommended. I love it. Of course, there's going to be a lot on this series that we're going to love. But I love the, we've talked about this. I love this whole era. So, all right. I accept that 7.5. I want to thank Byron Boldt for coming on tonight. It was it's always fun to have a conversation with you and talk Zappa or hell, whatever. Seems like we were overdue. So
yeah, well, I think we got another show in a couple of days. Well, this is being taped, so who knows when it's going to air.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot right now, so I'm not sure when this will air, but I'm going to try to get it up. I'm going to try to get it up ASAP.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I'll see you in a couple days. We'll be doing Archangels. So a lot of the people, a lot of people here are going, Archangels, what the hell? Well, you just wait. So we're going to be tackling that on Thursday. But anyway, Byron, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So please like, subscribe. Please leave a comment. Tell us what you like about cruising with Ruben and the Jets. Leave a comment. There's more Zappa on the way. So, all right, Byron Boldt, we'll see you. And keep it clean. Why not? All right.
Keep it greasy.
Keep it greasy, even better. Thank you, sir. We'll see you.